Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Clawson Planning Commission, scheduled for Tuesday, November 27th. I'm going to open the meeting at 7:30. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have roll call, please?
Mr. Audia?
Here.
Ms. Fenton?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Kucera?
Here.
Mr. McHale?
Here.
Ms. Prouse? Ms. Scripture?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Agenda item number 4 is approval of the regular meeting minutes from October the 9th, which I think Susie's going to get us a hard copy. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read them. They were all sent to us via email. Did anybody see anything that they didn't like or want to change on them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from October 9th, 2018.
Support.
I have a motion. I have support. Roll call, please.
Question on that. I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. Can we postpone the vote until we do a quick scan?
You think there's something serious that went wrong? We can do that, yeah. Okay, we'll hold it off until you can get a hard copy in there to look at then.
Should I withdraw my motion?
And support.
Yes.
Okay.
We could have discussion on that. We can have discussion.
So withdrawn.
That's fine.
Or we could approve it now and you can
guess I
make
can
changes if you find something that off color.
We could do that.
Okay, so
I don't have a problem with that
why don't
either.
we proceed with, I have a motion and I have support.
Well, I withdrew it, so I have to make another motion again. So I will
Okay.
make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of October 9th, 2018.
Support. I'll second that.
Motion, I have support. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture? Mr. Shepard?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Audia?
Yes.
Okay, now we have hard copies coming around. If you see anything that you don't like on that, let me know near the end of the meeting here, and we'll do something about it. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is a FOIA update by Reese Scripture.
So just, I don't know if everybody's completely aware, so I'm going to give a real quick, brief background and then talk about the proposed meeting that would be coming up. So some time ago, when we had the incident with our city planner being terminated and the stuff that went around that, I filed a couple FOIA requests, asked for some information, and through a little bit of process here and there, had a meeting with the city and one of the attorneys and we came to an agreement that I would withdraw the FOIA because the objective was, one of the primary objectives of filing it in the first place was to get more open and transparent communications between City Council and Planning Commission. There's been a lot of concerns, and there had been, and there's a lot of public comments. I know Annie's gotten up and spoke. I know Melissa. I know Scott. So there has been, and that's on the record, concerns about transparency, concerns about several things, and they agreed that moving forward, that is something that should be worked on and improved. And I said, well, based on, that agreement, and they agreed to have a meeting to start that process, to determine what those things were that we would need to work on and to start that process. It got postponed slightly because of the elections. They were pretty crazy, and that's perfectly reasonable, and I was fine with that. Once the elections were over, the attorney contacted me and said, that they were ready to move ahead. At that point, I sent out the email. He gave me 2 dates. I sent out the email, and he told me to send that out. He said, yes, please have the Planning Commission set those dates aside until we can get a commitment. And so I sent that email out doing that, and then I asked him in the conversation, I said, so we're moving forward with a discussion about how the Planning Commission and City Councils, how we can discuss some of our concerns over things, not to rehash or relitigate, and that was one of the things I agreed to, is to not go back over about what happened with Mr. Elliott or any of those incidents, but to look at our concerns, what those are regarding our relationship with council, regarding the information we receive or don't receive, and how that can be improved moving forward. So that's what the purpose of the meeting is supposed to be when we have it. And toward that end, because we don't get the opportunity to meet or speak that often, and people are busy, since we had this regularly scheduled meeting, I was hoping that we could take a few minutes and make sure that we as a body and as a group and as individuals have had a chance to think and express what we want to make sure is discussed when that meeting gets scheduled. Originally, they said they wanted it to be an informal meeting with no quorums, which I agreed to. That was fine. I knew there were a couple city council people. I said, that's fine. You pick your people. I know there was some commission people who would like to attend, and we were going to figure that out. Then they changed it to, they wanted it to be a full meeting with everybody. And I said, great, absolutely wonderful. So with that in mind, we know how these meetings go. We know that if we can go in there prepared, it can potentially go smoother, quicker, everybody can get home and we can get things accomplished. So I was hoping that we could take a few minutes tonight, along with all the other stuff that Susie and Jim have to update us on. I was hoping we could take a few minutes and make sure that we were clear on what some of our concerns were. And Melissa did send me an email that I told her I would make sure that I covered in the conversation, and I do have a list of what I would consider my concerns, which people may or may not agree with. They may have their own. So since I'm talking, let me just kind of go first and then invite other people to bring those. And the beautiful thing is that we don't have to take notes. We don't have to do anything because we've got that taken care of right now. So we can just all refer back to the minutes from this meeting to make sure, that we've got all that covered. So let me read Melissa's first. And I'm just going to read it word for word. I'm sure my comments will mostly echo yours. My main issue has been the lack of transparency and general communication from council, first with Greg Elliott, then with the selection of a new planning firm, and now with Mark Pollock. Secondary to the lack of transparency is the lack of consideration or respect for the planning commissioners, many of whom have extensive planning or public service experience. If I didn't watch the council videos, I'd have no idea what was going on with the planning firm selection process or the dismissal of our city manager. In my opinion, council should be seeking our input, at least on planning issues, not trying to exclude us from the conversation. At a minimum, some formal communication from council to PC should occur. I've mentioned this in the past, but I have heard council talk about trying to work more comprehensively as a city with all department and boards together. That was the impetus for the big joint meeting we had, last year, which I think was January. But it feels like lip service, as the actions of the council do not reflect cooperation or inclusion. We need to open up lines of communication between the PC and council and find a way to have meaningful, respectful dialogue for the good of the city and its residents. And Victoria, you don't have to, you want that copy, I'll pass that on to you. So that was the comments that Melissa sent in, and she's correct. One of my biggest concerns has been openness, transparency, but along with that, consistency and the inclusion of best practices. And the purpose of that would be so that the business community, the ones that we work with the most through our ordinances and through our interactions and site plans and partnership with the DDA when there's a DDA business before us, that the business community should have a clear path and an understanding of the expectations and outcomes. We've had way too many meetings where members of the business community have come, there's been confusion over what should happen. The bond question, which, is already on the record, and we can go back and revisit it if you want to look at the minutes, but that's been confusing. The parking issues that have come before us, where it kind of took us all by surprise. They were very angry, and we're all like, wait, we didn't do that. But yet we were and if there had been communication, better communication, consistent communication, that with the entire group, I think some of those could have been avoided. So I definitely that is something that I think needs to be part of the discussions. Toward that end, some sort of regular joint meetings should be scheduled. I'm not going to say when or how often. We all are very busy people, but they should be productive. They should be, not pedantic. And like the last meeting we had, I kind of thought was a waste of time, and I think Melissa just said that too. In her thing, it was just nothing was really accomplished, so I think it should be specific. There should be goals. For example, the topic of parking, which I already mentioned. We already know that our parking concerns are a byproduct of our success of our downtown. And we have an intersection with that parking from various city functions, planning and site plans, road people, the engineering department, DDA if it's a downtown business. So we have a lot, and city council, because they have to do with some of the ordinances that we don't have any jurisdiction over. So that is a natural intersection where we should be communicating to look for how do we manage our success as the downtown continues to grow. So that's just kind of an example. Another one of my concerns is that I am very concerned. I think we are not getting necessarily the legal advice that we ask for, when we ask for it, and how we ask for it. We get either nobody here to answer the questions, or when we do ask a question, for example, with the bond, we get something handed that I did, and so did several other people, Googled and got a much better product in 10 minutes from cities close to us. So I'm not particularly happy with the service that we get from the legal area, and I would like to see that improve. I'm not sure how it would do it, but that's a conversation that I think needs to happen. Whether someone's here consistently, what is our avenue, or how do we get that counsel when we need it? How do we say this is a good enough product and we're happy or not and get it fixed? How does all that happen? Another big concern that I have is that, again, going back to communication, but we have not been updated on things that are absolutely and immediately relevant to us. The perfect example right now is, I don't know how many of you have noticed, but the Pep Boys sign is up. The Zoning Board of Appeals, and I was at that meeting and I voted according to our ordinances, we denied the variance for the Pep Boys sign. Sometime between now and then, that sign, and I know they were going to file a lawsuit. I don't know all the details. There was some sort of a settlement. There was an agreement to get the sign up. I'm not saying that the decision to override the ZBA was necessarily bad or wrong. I'm saying that that's significant. First of all, my understanding is part of the reason it was overridden is that our ordinances are poor. Well, we all know that we need to look at our ordinances, and that's been something that's on the list. But it would be very helpful to understand when something like this happens, specifically what the problem is with the ordinance, so we have that in our mind as we move forward and look at those ordinances. And also, it'd just be nice to know when you get overruled I'm sure the Zoning Board of Appeals hasn't been officially, so when something like this happens, we deserve someone to come in front of us and say, hey, by the way, this was something that, you denied the variance based on the ordinances that the Planning Commission has control over, and here's why, and here's what we should think of in the future. I think that's simple and open and transparent and non-controversial. Okay, whatever happened, but we should be able to understand it. And then finally, back to Melissa is right. She's echoing again the concept of jurisdiction. Absolutely, the council has ultimate control via the budget and the oversight of the city manager, of the planning department and of a city planner. However, that is, again, something that we work directly with. We have the strongest and closest relationship with the planning department and those people. And when something happens that affects planning, to exclude us from the process entirely is just irresponsible. It's just simply irresponsible. I mean, it doesn't mean we have the ultimate say or we have the ultimate, but our input is valuable because we work with these people and we know what's going on. We understand some of the things that come before us that City Council's not here looking at. They're not in our room watching these things. So I think it's just super important that we be at least included in those conversations. And frankly, if we had been included in what went down a little while back, I think it would have not been nearly as ugly. So those are my concerns, and I've read Melissa's. I also have a little copy for you, so if you want to. And that is, I would then open it up to everybody else to add their thoughts, and then hopefully when we set the meeting, we can take these thoughts however they may be. And it doesn't mean everybody has to agree with me. That can be something that comes to that meeting and say, well, you know, I know this is what Reese thinks, but I think this, and that's fine. But I think if we all understand each other, that's just a much better way to go into it. Don't have to agree, but understand. So, anybody else?
I'll speak.
Anyone else?
So I don't ever want to be caught in the position that we were when Greg was let go. That was embarrassing to me. That was humiliating to him. And I was shocked when we got there. And just the fact that I had to walk out of the meeting, mid-meeting, was not a comfortable thing to me. It's not something I wanted to do. And I've had a off-the-record discussion with some people involved in it since then that were part of that decision-making process. But it didn't go through, as Reese is indicating, it didn't go through our committee. There was no discussion about it. And I just want to make sure that in the future, things like that don't happen to us, because I don't want to ever be put in that position again, because it wasn't fair to me, and it really wasn't fair to Greg to be put in that position. So I'd like to see something like that eliminated. So in that meeting, yes, I will again voice my feeling in regards to that. I have to say, and I didn't, I was a little shocked when I saw the Pep Boy sign going up also. Didn't know anything about it. Could have swore we had a variance that said that those come down. They don't go up anymore. So to see one going up was very surprising to me. I drove by the day they were putting the sign up and was quite surprised by it. So, yeah, I think that these meetings are going to be important. You know, I know we've tried to put them together in the past, and again, I am respectful of the fact that we are all busy, including myself, but I think it would make sense if we put a certain amount of time a year and say these are consistent, they have to be happen on a regular basis, just for the multiple groups to meet, the zoning board, the planning commission, the DDA, and the city council meet together.
So just to clarify, when did the Pep Boy sign go up? Do we have an idea?
Just recently.
Within the last month and a half.
Was it? Okay.
There was a legal agreement entered into with Pep
Okay.
Boys in the city of Clawson.
Okay. All right, so when was the legal agreement? Okay, goes
while
back to
ago.
our point. So, okay. All right, that's fine. Well, I'm not going to get mad.
And that's great. And if they had a legal agreement, that's wonderful. But why would we not be informed in any capacity whatsoever?
I guess my concern is that, you know, regardless of what the condition, state, whatever, of our sign ordinances, the fact that we can't hold anybody accountable really concerns me. That the fact they can do an end run and say, yeah, that's okay, we'll take care of it this way. And then we find out about it by just driving by, you know? Anyway, okay, it's very concerning. And I think as far as meeting, we definitely should. I was noodling, should it be a quarter? And I don't think it should be, I don't know if it's necessarily that often. You know, I have meetings at work all the time. It starts off at a daily thing, and next thing you know, no one's joining, right? So maybe it's twice a year at least. Start off with that, and then see how productive the first and second go, and try to write into the calendar year when it would be best for everybody, and when does it make sense. So, but, yeah, it's been a disappointing year. I thought we were off to a good start when we had our joint meeting, and then things just kind of fell apart quickly. And I'd like to repair that. I'd like to maintain a good communication relationship with everyone in the city. And I want to make sure we get that started quickly.
I would just simply add, because I think what I would say would be largely redundant. So I would definitely echo concerns about transparency. I think, you know, there's many things I can be doing. I don't need to be sitting up here. I've chosen, you know, to apply to be a planning commissioner because I cared about this particular community, and it just feels that things are not, there isn't I appreciate the direction that the ability of city council and the administration may be able to have, but it makes it hard hearing the ZBA conversation to find utility in this particular position if there are end run opportunities available. I think also in that notion of professional courtesy, things should be communicated. I think with respect to the staff that regularly attends these meetings, I think we get a lot of information, but there's other aspects of the city and various departments who aren't participating in the conversation, nor are they looking back to inform. I feel things go into a black box periodically, and we find the end result later on and try to make some sense of it here live in front of businesses, which is not, I would also say, unpleasant. And of course, it's not to ascribe any intent on anybody. I think I would want to make that clear in the remarks. Not knowing where things stand, I don't know how aware members of council would be about these particular issues. I would like to think about ways in which we would move forward.
I just want to say a couple things as well. So with the issue of transparency, I think if we're looking for solutions, I think that we really need to assess our adherence to the Open Meetings Act. I think that we are lacking in the standards of communication. I feel that there are some folks who are more in the know than others, and I think that we really need to make sure that all communications are going through the official channels, as well as the meetings as well. Those meetings have to adhere to the Open Meetings Act, and so procedurally, they're not. You know, ours, I think, are better than some. At the council meeting last week, I was pretty upset about the way that was structured, and it violated the Open Meetings Act.
Just to surmise some of the discussion that we've had here, transparency has always been a main concern, and it was a relevant term that we were trying to use to show the community and prospective businesses that we are transparent, that we do want to draw you in here. Businesses look at the stability of the community, and in the past few weeks, there could be a lot of discussion as to stability as far as, I'll say, council being informative. As we know, behind closed doors in a closed door meeting, sure, they cannot discuss everything that goes on there. The only fact is that there were many businesses and individuals represented at the last week's meeting, including several members from your truly commission right here. And they voiced the same thing, you know, where's the transparency? Where's anything that would represent unity or, you know, it's not my way or the highway type thing, you know, it should be a full involvement with everybody. And we are several different commissions, like the zoning board, ourselves. We're trying to establish that, yes, bring your business to Clawson because we want to work with you. But with the way things transpired and several people voiced their opinion and concerns to the council at last week's meeting, there has to be some steps taken forward. Like I said again, behind closed doors, we don't know what goes on. The only thing is that how they represent themselves, I don't want to see the arcade out in the front say, the little city with no heart.
Mr. Audio? Any comments?
I have no comment on this. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to close out that. There's no vote to be taken on it. There's no action to be taken on it. It's just a done deal as far as I'm concerned. I'll move on to item number 6. This is public discussion. Items not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak?
Can I speak as a public too?
Why don't you give me a minute? Seeing none, I will now close public discussion.
I could go down to the microphone if you want.
And we can move on to other business. A couple items. Well, The only comment I had in the previous thing, which I didn't bring up, you're asking about the Pep Boy sign. We just tonight got the copy of the minutes from our last meeting here on October 9th was the last meeting that we had. If you look at the back page, under other business, the first item says, Ms. Steck said Pep Boys had a permit issued for a pole sign. So we were informed back on October 9th that happened. I just saw that on there.
You're right.
Other business.
All right, you guys ready for my update? I got a whole bunch.
Can I do a quick one then?
Okay.
This is real quick.
All right.
You're
Bear
not,
with
you're
me.
not selling anything, are you?
I'm not selling anything.
Okay.
All I want to do is, based on, to congratulate Lieutenant Scott Cervello as the new police chief and the other officers that were promoted and established into new positions within the Clawson Police Department. Congratulations to them.
Here, here.
That's it.
All right, that was
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so I've got quite a few of updates for us. I'll start with our ribbon cuttings. We have a ribbon cutting for House of Optical this Thursday, 9 a.m. bright and early. This is the grand reopening, really, of their new location since they are now next to Renshaw. So they will be having that this Thursday, the 29th at 9 a.m. On December 11th, we will be having a ribbon cutting for My Salon Suite. The actual ribbon cutting will be at 5 p.m., and they are having a celebration between 4 and 7. So stop by My Salon Suite. And keeping it over on that side, Billings, they don't have a ribbon cutting scheduled just yet, but they have a soft opening this week, I believe. Correct, Jim? Yeah. Yes, so go and get some lawn equipment at our newest, one of our newest businesses. So that leaves us with like one vacancy, just for the record, over in Clawson Center. So we're doing pretty good on this vacancy front. Also, we have new owners for Super 8. They are new. It is going to be, they closed a couple weeks ago. The building was sold for $1.8 million, so that's pretty fabulous. They are going to be renovating it into more of a mid-scale type of hotel, and their intent, we met with them before they actually purchased the property, and their idea is to reconfigure the front entryway and then do an addition at the back and add about 18.
In the short-term semi-truck parking will stop?
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes.
That means that the people that came before us a couple months ago that looked at turning it into
They decided to opt out.
they opted out?
They opted out. So this was actually the quickest and most on-time closing I think we've encountered. They said it was going to be on the 9th, and it actually happened on the 9th. So I reached out to the new owners earlier today. They're meeting with an architect. I imagine that they are going to, probably won't see plans come before you until early next year.
So this will trigger a site plan?
This will trigger site plan. They have just the improvements to the front entryway and the building addition would trigger site plan anyways, but they weren't exactly enamored with the overall facade, so they were going to be making those changes anyways. So,
Susie, is there a reason why you haven't told them who it is?
I believe that they haven't actually officially told us that yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, we do have a good idea, but I'll confirm with them and let you know for sure if I can tell you guys. But my guess is that you'll see more activity doing interior type of demo before we get an actual site plan. But expect that for the new year. Excuse me. Speaking of site plans, Wendy's will be going through site plan review as well. They're getting into the same swing of it as KFC. And so we just got plans yesterday. for that. We're going to try and get them in at our December meeting. That could be a little tight, so that may not happen until early next year as well. We will have, last but not least, Mata Automotive over there at 1177 West Maple. West Maple's getting some love. The office portion of Foam and More. Yes. We've had numerous conversations, all of us, with the architect and the owner and everyone involved in this project. And we finally got plans that are far more in line with what we discussed with them at our September meeting. So one of the things that Mario and I had discussed, and I don't remember if we talked about this at the October meeting or not, we had given them, you guys had authorized their temporary certificate of occupancy with the expectation that the plans were going to be coming back far sooner than they actually are. And in discussing it back in the office, we realized that, technically, they weren't even eligible to get their TCO until about 2 weeks ago because they still had interior improvements that needed to be made. So it was issued about 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. My days are kind of flowing together, but it was issued within the last 2 weeks, and that will give them enough time to come back and get their actual approval.
Excuse me, 1 minute here.
Well, our certificate of occupancy, you guys authorize it, but it doesn't get issued until the building is safe per the building official standards. So you guys can authorize it on September 25th, but if the building's not, if the building is not in a safe condition until October 29th, then that's the start date of the TCO.
Have they not moved in? Are they not occupying this building and using it?
They were not until 2 weeks ago.
There's no offices in there? There's nothing up and running?
Not until 2 weeks ago. That's when it was issued.
Yes, it was issued, was it 2 weeks ago? Because they have cars there today. They came in today verifying that the plans they submitted were accurate and will be in front of this board at their next available meeting.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because if you look in the backside of our last meeting here, one of the last items, Board Member Casera requested that Meta Automotive appear before the PC regarding the TCO. I wanted to bring them back in here, and I did some research on our old agendas looking online. It was August 28th was the first time that I met with Meta. They came in here. We granted a TCO at that meeting. September 25th, they didn't show nothing else. We extended that TCO for 30 days as far as I was concerned. On October 9th, like I said, I requested that they come back. And on October 23rd, our PC meeting was canceled. On November 13th, the PC meeting was canceled. So I was kind of surprised that they're not here.
Well, all right, so that's, yes, you guys authorized it, but like I said, if the building's not safe to occupy, then the clock hasn't started. It only starts once the certificate of occupancy is issued. So when we kind of gave them the extension, we hadn't really fully thought that out and realized that the clock hadn't even started yet, right? So the extension was essentially moot because the clock hadn't started. So right now, so it was issued within the last 2 weeks, so that's when the clock starts, and they have 30 days from that point to come back, and they're going to be here on the 11th. So, it has taken them an exceptionally long period of time to get there, but they didn't even begin to occupy until Jim issued this TCO. So
I believe our reason for giving them the TCO in the first place was to not hold them back, to get them up and running.
yes, and they weren't comfortable.
And that
They
was
weren't
my
comfortable
hopes.
moving into a building that, one, they were having architectural issues, and the building wasn't safe. So it didn't meet building standards, so they couldn't occupy it anyways.
No, this is news to me. I didn't know that if we issue a temporary, that it doesn't
But you don't
become
issue it. You authorize Jim to issue it.
I thought
so.
it became valid at that point in time. I didn't realize it came out later.
No, and this, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just
Oh,
saying
yeah.
that. We just came to this conclusion because In most cases, when someone requests a TCO, it's
in a
for
hurry.
a structure that is ready to go, and they're just looking for to do a two-track system of going through site plan review and occupying the building. In this particular case, their first track was slowed down because of multiple architects and the owner and the property owner, business operator, mainly getting on the same page. So that's the reason why that's taken an extended amount of time. And in addition, the tract of occupying the building, you'd think it would have been ready to go, but per Jim, they were not ready to be occupied that building because it wasn't in a safe condition. So that's why that clock didn't start. So
Okay, so now, they're currently in now, and the clock is running.
yeah, because
Yes.
Jim.
But if I remember
When they-
correctly, hold on, sorry, just, I don't want to lose that thought. If I remember correctly, they told us that they were planning on doing internal renovations and that they thought they could do it while they were working there. So is the policy that there can be no internal renovations, or,
They're allowed
What?
to do light demo,
okay.
but that's it. And Jim can speak to more whether or not he's seen any interior plans. I
'Cause
don't.
I feel like maybe they misled us as to where they were in the process.
I think they were misled by the owners of the building, saying that there's no problems. We had egress doors that were going the wrong way, no panic bars, incorrect exit signage, there were no fire extinguishers that were tested and certified in there. But every time they took a step forward, the architect for Foreman Moore that failed to get the stuff, we actually brought both the owner of Foreman Moore and the owner of Mata in and explained exactly what we wanted on the drawings. When this idea was brought to my attention, I had question marks, but I thought it was a judgment call for the TCO. They had already put up a surety bond of $5,000. You had given the MATA permission to enter with a TCO, and once the building was safe, that's when it started. Now we got the plans in, and they're coming back in front of you at the next meeting. So
Okay.
it's, you
Okay,
can be
that-
mad. I'm the one who makes the ultimate decision. I heard Susie's and Mario's argument, and I made a judgment call, said the TCO could be issued to move the business forward, get them in, as long as the drawings were coming in, they were coming back in front of this board.
Yeah, that's just confusing on my end then, because I thought this is the only board, this is the only place you can get a temporary certificate of occupancy. And I thought once we issued it.
We didn't issue it, we authorized
Well,
it.
I'm using the wrong word, yes. We
Yes, but
authorized it.
that's
I
important.
thought we authorized it for 30 days. I thought after 30 days it's going to expire. I don't know if everybody else felt that way. That's what my thought was.
Actually,
I didn't
their
realize.
thought.
I didn't
thought-
realize there was a delay there.
I thought Jim had the right, I mean, I thought it was based on when they actually
'Cause they have to
took
pull
the
a permit,
occupancy.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
This goes back to a statement that was made a few meetings ago. Could have been a couple months ago, I have no idea. But I don't know how many TCOs we have floating around out there in the city right now, but it would be extremely helpful to me, and I'm sure other commissioners would feel the same way, if every single meeting we walked in, we had a working list of the TCOs that are currently out there right now, and when the TCOs were issued, and at least we could sit here and have open discussion about, hey, where is this group? We haven't seen them in 60 days. They had a 30-day TCO. Why are they not here?
Sure.
Right? And to me, it doesn't seem like that hard of a task to have a working list going of TCOs. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it doesn't seem that difficult to me.
It shouldn't be. I've been working with BSNA to try and come up with a better system for us internally, but.
If it's on an Excel spreadsheet.
I know. Well, some people care about Excel, but all right.
I thought you guys got in trouble for not using the new expensive software system.
But I got it on my list now, so starting December 11th. How's that?
That'd be fantastic.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Awesome.
So I think just, we're so used to people already being in the building and then
Yes.
coming and ask for it.
Right, that's what I thought the circumstance was. But I'd like to know if we authorize a 30 days temporary, and it's delayed, say 2 weeks later, then it's actually issued to them, I'd like to know the date set on that. And then when it expires, what becomes of it then? Once that thing expires, does that mean that they fixed up their building up to code and that you can give them a permanent position there? The temporary just goes away, they're permanent?
Correct. That's, then if they meet all the requirements of this board, and then the temporary is turned into a permanent C of O.
Okay, so Maida and Haberman's is still on a temporary, I believe, right? Or is Haberman's okay now?
Haberman's has the first floor, and then remember when he came before this board, he was working out the issues and finances and stuff. So they haven't occupied the second floor. So no part of that building is occupied that doesn't have full compliance.
Okay, so it's the temporary expired, but he's in full compliance with what he's using.
Now we get into legal issues and parting hairs, where if we're trying to work with the businesses and get them in and continue them to continue on the process, or do we start the enforcement saying you haven't complied? Now we go to the enforcement side. So it's, yeah, I don't have a solid answer for that one.
Okay, I can see where there's some shady ground on it. But we're holding bonds apparently on Maida and Haberman's both, right?
Haberman has not, well, I'll have to look at the Haberman file to see exactly what was supposed to be issued in that. But I don't think they've completed the facade as required. They completed the landscaping, and then that other parking lot still needs to be resurfaced across Manitou.
Okay. But we do have bond money from Maida and from Haberman's. Are we holding anybody else's bond money?
We also have a bond for 157 and 159 North Rochester Clawson CrossFit. And I do believe their TCO is actually expired. So,
They were supposed to complete the exterior parking lot with getting CrossFit in there, and they failed to do it during this construction season. And
So we've got bond money to make it
they
happen.
we've got
they renewed the bond,
$20,000 for them.
$20,000.
We can't do anything about it because the construction season's over,
Right.
Right.
so.
Well, technically, you could say their temporary C of O's expired, start enforcement and close down the
Parking lot.
business. So you're punishing the business for what the owner of the property said he was going to do.
Wasn't that the shared lot with the candy store?
Yes.
It'll be under snow pretty soon, too.
Yes.
Well, worst case, we give them a show cause and make them come in here and talk to us again, you know. Not that it's going to accomplish anything, but
I thought
And
we
I think
weren't
we
doing show causes anymore. Can we talk about
We did
Is
talk
that right?
about that.
we did a bunch
We
of
did
them
talk about
last year. Jim got in trouble for that.
I got in trouble for that,
Maybe
and
it
I
would
was
be
told not to have
helpful
show
for all of us
causes.
if we could review the procedure on this.
All right.
It'd be helpful for me, at
All right.
least. So if that's not a tool in our tool belt anymore, what are we doing, and how do we make that decision about?
Was that in the big book you gave us, Susie?
It might be.
Maybe? I don't think so. Show causes I don't think there's not a specific section in there
didn't-
about show causes. We can add a section, though.
I
There is
just wondered
room
because
to
I would save you the
expand the
effort.
nerdy binder, okay? So
I love the nerdy binder.
it's right by Jim's feet right now.
I do have some bad news that North Main, Susan DeSantis, her office building, she got in compliance on October 22nd, gave me a call to do the final inspection on October 23rd. She had a slip and fall, and she passed away from the slip and fall.
Oh, my goodness.
So
Really?
that the building's in full compliance and is going to be going up for sale after the attorneys work out all the details.
Please tell me it was not a slip and fall on the ramp that.
That's
I
right.
have not got that information, so.
That's tragic.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes,
Can
bad
we-
news.
Can I move back to positive news?
There's a new little business I noticed on 14 Mile It used to be I think there was a vacuum cleaner shop in there for a while. Now it looks like it's antiques or something.
Oh, what is, that's,
Stitch in Time
Use a
has
table.
now
it's the
become,
Scoop. What is this?
It's got a new name and it's got a sign that says open in it, but I haven't heard anything else about it.
yeah, that those buildings had gone through the site plan review process when Stitch in Time, I think there was a hair salon that went in there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was just an initial merchant's license, so it switched from tailor shop to
Vintage Scoop. There
Vintage
we go.
Scoop, which is old toys from when we were children.
Oh.
Well, when
Yeah.
I was children.
Saw the sign. I haven't stopped in there yet.
I read about a lot of those.
All right, so I have two more pieces of good news. I passed out, actually, I have three more pieces of news, sorry. I passed out some light reading for you. We have our Oakland County One Stop Ready certification, and I have been working to get us our state redevelopment ready certification. And so we've done our initial self-evaluation through the process. I have met with our representatives through the redevelopment ready communities program. And now they've given us our baseline evaluation report. And this is one of the final steps before we are officially certified. Elizabeth King, our RC contact, will be presenting next week at City Council. And so after that, we have like one more resolution and then we are in. So please read. Don't read if you don't want to, but I encourage you to read. It's not all bad. We have some really good things. Joint meetings are, that is something that they strongly encourage. Same with the Oakland County One Stop Ready program.
Is this something that gives us preference for MISTA funding?
It does, MISTA and MEDC funding. So we have access to some community revitalization program funds now because we are engaged in the process and we have a traditional downtown. Communities, linear communities that don't have a traditional downtown have to be certified, like Roseville. They were the first ones, but Roseville had to become completely certified before they were eligible for any funding. Like I said, we have access to funding right now. We have a couple projects that we've been speaking with individuals about that, they're hoping to tap into those funds. And, but we will have access to more. Yes, ma'am.
Page 8. Page 8. I want to know some of this stuff. It's a cool report.
I'm gonna 3-hole punch this and put it in the binder.
Yeah.
That's right. Special binder.
Nerdy
Page
binder.
8.
Get it straight. It's the nerdy binder.
Nerdy binder. Sorry, nerdy binder.
Yes.
So red is bad.
Red is bad.
Green
Green
is
is good.
good.
Red is bad.
So when is this regarding the public participation? Is this regarding the master plan or just in general?
In general.
Because I saw the master plan. Okay.
In general.
So this is in general, and then.
And these are things that I've already spoken with our clerk about, like, hey, how can we do this? So
That was my question. What are the methods? Because clearly this is not a riveting event that people want to come to or right. I can understand why this is red. I'm just wondering.
This is citywide. This is not just for planning and zoning related functions. This is citywide. How can the community as a whole be redevelopment ready, be welcoming, and say yes? We're not.
Gotcha.
So, Susie, thank you for sharing. This is great. Out of curiosity, I'm assuming this lives somewhere publicly, either on the Clawson website or with redevelopment ready communities. I ask because there's just a really, I think in the executive summary, I think it's interesting to note as they look at the citywide. I think it's just a kudos to the planning staff that they cite the strengths are in the master plan, downtown plan, development plan review process, zoning ordinance noted as a strength, and some interesting challenges.
It doesn't live there yet, but it will.
Okay.
Do you have an extra copy, Susie?
I have
No, there wasn't one here. I came in right at the
Glance
start.
through mine while you're looking through. So what is this? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
all right, no, go ahead. I have one other thing about RRC, but if you have a question about this, I'm happy to answer.
So I understand the first part you talked about, like what other benefits, what does this bring to us? How does the city gain from this?
We will also get tech support from MEDC, right? So the public participation, they will be able to offer us assistance to craft that plan, either at a free or discounted rate. It depends on how the funding is structured for the program at that point in time, right? So we have access to tech support. We do have preferential funding. The RRC, once we're certified, we have the ability to actively have the MEDC's site selectors feature. We can choose to feature specific properties that we want targeted for redevelopment. They'll help us put together those packages, and then when they're out nationally, internationally, they will market our properties to those businesses and corporations looking to move in to the state. So
Just vacant businesses, or?
not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I mean, it could be a vacant property. It could be a building that is. It could be something like Burger King that's vacant. It could be something that is occupied, like we'll say Huffmaster, but I mean, it could be anybody really. So, yes.
Question, Susie.
Sure.
Okay, is there any kind of an action plan that can be developed to get everything into the green?
Well, there is, it's not quite structured, like I personally would probably want to restructure this little sheet far better so I can look at it and say, oh, I know exactly what 5.1.2 means instead of having to dig it out.
We
right?
found it.
Yeah.
But for me, I'd rather see it, quick and dirty listed more like how our master plan is. That's not quite in here, but that is something that I will certainly ask Elizabeth to help us create. They may have it elsewhere in their own programming and their own development of reports.
As far as an action plan to
Yeah,
address
a better
each of
action
these
plan.
items, and
Yeah, and they have they do have a pretty extensive library of best practices too to help us start accomplishing these goals, right? And they will do continuous evaluations, so if you're not up to snuff, then they're going to let you know.
okay, that's good,
Right.
because I know the emphasis is to get community involvement
Indeed.
more on that, then it states that in here too, so.
Right. And I can send this electronically too if you don't, if you'd prefer to read on your tablet or whatever. But, and also related to this, and I will send this particular link out. They do have, RRC does, they have 6 training modules that they encourage. I've already attended all of them. They encourage staff, councils, planning commissions, volunteers to attend these sessions. They're not exactly the most convenient sessions to actually physically attend, and so now they have put them online, and there's 6 modules. You can do them all within the course of, I think, 60 days, and they're about an hour and a half, I think. So I will send you the link if you would like to, check those sessions out.
That'd be great, appreciate it.
No problem. They're very similar in style to the One Stop Ready programming that some of you have attended to, so to kind of give you a sense of that.
And then we finish those and we're certified, right?
Certifiable.
You are just that much more knowledgeable on things what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Yep. And last but not least, so planning consultants, we've talked about this. Council's narrowed it down to 2 firms. It will be Giffords, Webster, and Beckett and Reader. Sorry, Mario. So those are the 2 finalists. They will be presenting next Tuesday at City Council.
Which numbers were they? In order of how they went, because that's how I remember them, first, second, third, fourth.
Giffords was the first one, and Beckett and Rader were the fourth.
Okay.
Did Giffords used to go by the name Forsyth?
No, they were clear zoning, and they were also Birchler Arroyo.
The three people I met at the first interview, I've met in Clawson before. I thought they
Yes,
did our
they
master
were-
plan.
They did, yes, they did. They did the downtown master plan. They were known as clear zoning at that point in
Okay, so
time.
they didn't go by this name, Giffords and Webster.
No,
Okay.
no, they were acquired by Giffords Webster shortly after they completed the master plan. So, or
Okay.
actually after they completed the zoning, the DDA zoning update. So, they have a wider breadth of services that they have access to. So they will be presenting next Tuesday at City Council, and I'm not entirely sure what council's process is for making a decision or when they anticipate having the new firm start, but you now know what I know.
Susie, were the proposals shared with the planning commissioners? Or did you guys have to go onto how did you find them? Because I haven't seen them.
Actually, I don't know if we ever had the actual proposals shared. They were discussed at the one open meeting that they had where they all came and presented. And
Right.
then the city council had a discussion about it at one of their regular meetings where they kind of said, well, they all decided who their favorites were. And I don't think it was super controversial. It kind of fell out. But I don't think we've ever seen the proposals. I don't think those ever been provided. And I do know they had some discussion at that meeting. There was questions about whether financially it was okay to share what they had put in the proposal. I don't know why it wouldn't be. I mean, everything's public in government, but I don't think it was, the city council didn't want to share it. I think it was more along the lines of they weren't sure at the time if that was okay, but I don't know what happened after that. I know someone asked the question, and then, so.
I have no answer for you. Sorry.
So then my next question is, can we get a copy of the two proposals?
I will certainly ask that question.
A little bit more good news. Today, White Wolf Pastries, a Japanese pastry shop that will be moving into the space next to Flipside Records, submitted their building plans, and that's part of the Noble Fish remodel. Is it the same company, just a different branch of
It's
it?
the same parent company, True World Markets, but completely separate companies. White Wolf Patisserie is going to be the flagship store. So,
I'm sorry, wait, I apologize, because I
sorry,
was
my
talking to someone else.
sing-songiness, I'm sorry.
No,
It's going
I
to be
was
their
talking to someone
flagship
else, it's my
store.
fault. What were you saying?
It's going to be their flagship bakery, right?
Cool.
So they've got another one that's going to be opening in Novi as well. Significantly smaller. I mean, this is definitely.
When?
Well, they're a few months behind. They were originally hoping to be open like mid-December, so Valentine's Day maybe. I know they're working behind. There's not a whole lot, I don't believe, of truly significant work in White Wolf. Noble is a different story, but I could be wrong. I'm not the building official.
Are they also taking over Tirana, or is that something else?
Noble Fish is going to be taking over Tirana and the former salon for us space. So they are essentially doubling their space. It's going to be, they're expanding the market. They will be expanding seats. There's going to be like 50-ish.
50?
I know, right? And they're going
As
to be
opposed to the
spread
two
out.
that are back there?
And they're going to be spread out. You don't have to sit in people's laps. It's going to be really
So
awesome.
will they also then now have to be ADA compliant?
Yes. Yep. And they're working on, I mean, Jim can tell you a little bit more about what exactly they're doing, but last time we spoke to them, their intent was to kind of remodel one side and then kind of flip over and move into the newer finished space, and then work on that, and then combine the spaces together. Yes? Is this still the plan?
Yeah, construction's running a little bit slow when you're dealing with 1920s buildings and infrastructure. things aren't where you're expecting them to be, and they're not of the same quality as you expect today's work to be done. So they're running slow. Plumbing, mechanical, electrical are the main things. Interior walls is pretty simple, but yeah, it's going to be a brand new, very impressive location.
So will this issue site plan?
No, because remember that whole building went through site
Did
plan
that,
The
earlier.
Travis family.
I asked that because I'm concerned about parking now.
I was right there with you. I was going to question.
Well, that
the
makes
parking.
three of us. I was looking at a parking deck.
Where?
Where were you looking at
Where
that?
are you looking at that?
Auburn Hills?
Rochester?
I mean, don't they still have to meet the parking feasibility?
When they went through site plan review, they knew at the time that they were going to be doing, that Toronto was going to be going away, Noble Fish was expanding. I mean, that was the impetus really for them to go through the site plan review process. So, I mean, it was something that was discussed, and it was, as part of the approval.
But as far as space and occupancy, they're not changing anything from what was the seating capacity in Tirana or for just us, right?
I mean,
So
you
really-
have that back area where there's a lot space back there. Like there's always open space far back, like kind of if you go
Oh, in the parking lot.
directly.
Yeah, well, I'm saying,
directly
I don't know if
west of
there's
you.
necessarily a
Getting
difference
crazy
in
back there.
parking requirements, right?
Crazy.
It shouldn't be, and really, I mean, even though they're expanding the seating, they're still anticipating, they want to do
Have a lot of-
more carryout, have more, that's part of the market expansion is, have more to-go sushi containers, so they're not really anticipating people sitting and staying.
But they will
What are they putting
park.
50 seats in for?
Well,
Right, but they're,
How do we
Coffee
sort
shop
of
had 100, didn't
judge
it?
that traffic?
Seats, did there? No.
If we're not
many.
talking about seats in a
But I
restaurant.
mean, it's not that much different, that's my point.
Did you hear the question?
no, I didn't,
I
sorry.
said, how do we judge whether there's enough parking if we're not talking about butts and seats?
105.
Because we are talking about increased traffic, stop and go traffic.
Right, I understand.
Is there nothing within the ordinances that addresses that?
Well, Glenn had addressed it, saying that Tiriano's going away, and they had seating for over 50 inside their coffee house.
But they didn't have ample, there's not enough parking for all the restaurants that are there now. Because that wasn't, you're talking about a lot more people coming from other areas of southeast Michigan to come to this destination, which there was not for Tirana or the hair salon or what used to be the other
And
side.
water to go will still be there.
Water to go will still be there. It's just
So
Toronto
this
and
is the
here
thing, you're
for
going to
us.
have a lot more people coming and going that aren't familiar with the new traffic bays and where you turn and you don't turn and all that stuff. So I just want to put it out there.
When you did the site plan review for the building, as they just mentioned, the existing users would have added up to the parking calculation. So hopefully at that point in time, the parking and available parking met that number. You do have an ordinance regulation that says that for takeout facilities, the parking requirement is based on the waiting area, and then it's a pretty low number. So for example, in the Noble Fish, if there's a specific area for like a takeout counter, and then they'd have a couple seats waiting for someone waiting, whatever that area is calculated, that creates the number of parking spaces required, which is pretty low because it anticipates in and out quickly. Because
Never been to Noble Fish.
Well, in terms of pickup, like Susie was saying, in terms of having grab it and go lunch options, and then in terms of the bakery, they're not anticipating having a large number of seats in there. It's not going to be a Starbucks situation where you sit down and use their Wi-Fi forever. They're anticipating just a handful of seats, I believe.
I mean, I appreciate.
But it is good. It does all important questions.
I appreciate the technical analysis. I mean, when we were talking about Zioli's, we talked about the parking lot,
Right.
and it's a much smaller, without the track record or probably attraction that Noble Fish might carry. So I think it's one that we and others should be watching and paying attention to how people use that space, what recreation activity, entertainment activity, leisure activity looks like in that area. And we already know parking is an issue in the city.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So it seems like this is a surprising development to me. It's really exciting. I hadn't heard that rumor, so it's. I would think
Not a
there's
rumor.
pretty. I don't know where I've been. I haven't heard this thing, but Yeah, I can imagine a very different experience of parking in the downtown.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely going
Plus,
to
we have the distillery, so any parking on the south side is going to be occupied. And I'm not convinced that the crosswalk situation is one that is that safe for people to use. Maybe that needs to be considered as well.
I believe
Do
that.
we need to follow this in order to get funding for it, or?
Maybe.
Well,
I mean,
Acres-
But when you say
clearly
that-
there's a lot. I mean, parking. As you said, I mean, we know parking is an issue,
Yep.
right? We know it. We need to be really creative on how we're doing this because a parking structure is really expensive, and that's just not going to fly, right? So, we've looked at it before. It needs to be, now is the time to really creatively think about it. Come up, maybe it's coming up with more public-private type of partnerships where we know we have businesses such as the daycare. Now I know that's not quite, like, it's not super close, okay? But they have access parking in the evening after they're closed. It's part of a solution, right? Is it going to fix everything? No, but it's part of a solution. It shouldn't be ruled out, right? So, I mean, we just need to start getting really creative in how we address this.
So how much parking is Ace Hardware? Do they own all the parking over in front of that building?
They own a significant
Because
portion of
Martinizer's
parking.
gone, right? And the
Yes.
bookshop still
Yes.
there. don't
They're
remember.
still there. Yeah, Martinizing got kicked out. They have. Hold that thought.
I want to say 87, but I think that's too
Yeah.
much.
No, I think you're kind of right.
Well, you're looking
Because
for
there's
that-
two parking lots. There's their parking lot because they own their property.
Yep.
And then there's the actual public parking lot.
Yep.
But I think,
City, yeah, but I don't know
yeah.
where the line is.
Yeah.
drawn.
Yeah, it's really
kinda
wonky
odd.
over
Well,
there.
you can tell from where they're.
Right, where the pavement, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got the parking in front of the buildings there, and then you've got that little aisleway, and then Ace Hardware has that section in front of them, and then you've got the big area back, and I agree with Scott, because it's not always 100% capacity.
Right.
Right.
I've seen maybe 80% on that, so.
Well, again, we may be surprised by what we find.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mario's right. 87 sticks in my head. So we'll call it between 70 and 90. How's that? But I think it's closer. I think 87 sounds about right.
The real
So,
good news is we have the bike parking. I remember that, or the amenities.
Yes.
That was a long part of the
Amenities,
conversation.
yes.
So, but we would see them for a sign, though. I would imagine they would come back in for a sign
For which?
for Noblefish.
Noblefish,
For
I
us.
believe their sign have they already submitted a sign permit?
Yeah, they did with
Yeah.
Rasad.
White Wolf,
okay.
though. White Wolf, I don't believe we've seen a sign permit for them yet.
But you've got some vacant land in Clawson too, though, that could be turned into a parking lot.
But it's
Yeah.
owned.
Oh, I know
Yes.
it's owned.
Dependent on the
And
owner.
I'm
Yeah.
sure-
In the spirit of getting creative, we'll just have a Clawson shuttle. It'll be a food truck.
Yes, I
Grab a bunch
like,
of loose scooters from Detroit. We'll have the scooters.
I like the way you're thinking, George.
Well, and we could save
shuttle
space because they do have garages with the elevators, and it would save ramp space.
That, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Roll up windows.
Can we lease the Troy trolley? Is that something that?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love it.
We got to come up with
Love to
some
hear that.
better alliteration for Clawson. That's so sorry. Not going for Troy Trolley. Yes, Annie.
Sorry, I also don't remember just doing the site plan review. I mean, maybe for the whole thing, but not specifically for Noble. But when we were there last week, I just had questions about their compliance with the loading zones, because they're parking the semis and blocking off that entire lane for traffic coming in and out of the public parking lot. Took some photos. They pull the semis right to the back of the building and sit there. We were there for an hour and a half while we were in Detroit
Like-
Burger Bar.
Like approximately what time?
Between 6 and 7.
PM?
Yeah.
Yikes.
So they're
If you've got photos,
Yeah.
send them on over. And here, my last shameless plug, if you want to see something hysterical and you have 20 minutes of time to watch me talk very violently with my arms. I interviewed with the awesome Clawson kids, right, at the beginning of November, and I talked about all of the different businesses that have opened in the city, and in just this year. So we're right on the 24 mark. So everybody says they sound like a goofball. I definitely sound like a goofball. But watch it. They posted it on the Clawson page. It's also on it's on YouTube. I'll send you guys the link for giggles. Yeah, Reese watched it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, do I really sound like that? Do I really use my hands that much? Yes. Sit on my hands." Apparently, the answer is yes. So that is all I have. But it's fun. It's good to be excited about things.
Okay.
I think you actually scared your interviewer. She gave you a couple sideways looks like, okay.
Well,
Thank you.
that doesn't surprise me either. So.
Anything else?
I have a couple things. So House of Optical, you said they've got their grand opening.
Yes.
Are they really complete with their site plan?
No, they're not. They have, parking lot issues. Surprise. And they're part of a shared parking agreement, and the shared parking agreement says that those property owners are supposed to get together and they're supposed to do these things as a group, and they can choose not to, and this, that, and the other thing. So basically, no. They are still working. They want to work together because Old Port needs to make some improvements to their parking lot. Renshaw needs to make some improvements. Obviously, House of Optical does. We're actually trying to schedule a meeting with them either December 6th or 13th. I'm still waiting to get to hear back from some people before that's set.
From House Optical?
From the entire
okay.
group, just to make sure we can set the date. But no, technically not. I mean, with the things that are specific to their building and their their little immediate surrounding area, but very tightly, yes, they're complete with those elements, but not the parking lot.
All right. I saw Julian Brothers building
Yes,
sale sign.
yes, that sold back in August-ish.
What, Julian Brothers?
It's still on there. I thought it sold earlier this year.
Those property owners that own the vacant lots in Clawson bought that earlier, like late summer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, but the sign is still up there. I was curious if they
Right.
turn around and sell it again, or that's from...
That is not their style. No, it's just still up there.
Huh. So it's sold, but it's
It's
interesting.
still,
Did you say Julian Brothers?
yes. Julian Brothers
Well, the building.
is still there.
Okay.
I don't know the details of the sale. If they've negotiated a certain length of lease or any of that kind of stuff. But they're still there for now.
You said it's owned by Mahmoud? That's who owns it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So.
And last, unless I can think of something else, Parent Heating and Cooling, 459 North Rochester Road.
Yes.
What's going on with that building? It seems like there's something happening on the outside, some plywood or some, looking at an old picture on the street side, it looks better than what it looks like now.
I've seen trucks like that.
So-
I haven't driven past there.
Okay.
In the recent, well, definitely not this week. But,
I believe the sign is down, there's some boarded up windows in front, so. but-
We'll go take a peek.
I thought they moved out of there.
Wait, 459 Buchanan Electric? Is that
Pretty
what?
sure. Yeah,
That's Buchanan Electric, I think. Hold this thought.
Yeah, one of the buildings. has
I
this
do have a
place.
magic
Yeah.
booklet of things.
Plywood in the windows now?
I can see it. Yeah, I think that is. Let me see.
That looks nice here, right now.
That's Buchanan Electric now. But I'll check into it.
Okay.
I'll just make a note.
Just I drove past it a couple times thinking that something was going to happen about it's, looks vacant to me, and I believe the sign is down, but, it doesn't look acceptable, but anyway.
Yeah, because I thought Parent moved into Troy, just north of 15 there,
Oh, okay.
on Rochester.
On Rochester? Okay. Okay.
I'll look
That's
into it.
Through.
Anything else?
Do you have forms, Susie?
Oh, yes, see, thank you. I knew there was one more thing. Thank you. So the mayor mentioned at last week's meeting that there was a few vacancies coming up on the planning commission. And so that is Mr. Sarah, Miss Prowse, Miss Scripture, and Mr. Shepherd. You guys are up at the end of this year. So, being proactive, I brought you a reappointment application.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
See how you feel about that.
That's not an
Are there
indication
term
of-
limits for planning commission?
4 years, I think.
Hand me the nerdy book, please.
Nerd book.
The nerdy book, right? The nerd book, see? The nerd book has so many awesome things. So, let's see. The term of each appointed member of the planning commission shall be 3 years or until his or her successor takes office, with all appointments to be dated from May 1st and staggered such that as near as possible to 1/3 of the appointed members' terms expire on December 31st of each year.
Ouch.
Vacancies on the planning commission for unexpired terms shall be filled using the same process that applied to the vacant position.
But there's nothing about consecutive terms or total term.
No.
Term limits?
There are no term limits. There are no term limits.
You know how well that works in the state.
They can't get any force members to do this.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, me and Ruth Bader, not willing.
Take your vitamins.
I have a couple of questions.
Anything else before we get wheel off base here?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So Premier Payroll, speaking of Mahmoud, have we had a meeting with them? I know that last time we talked, it's the largest eyesore on going into Clawson.
yeah. Yeah, well, I'll let Jim talk while I look through the magic book.
He's referring to 400 through 420 South Main. We have entered, I had him in district court and entered into an agreement for him to fix that back wall next construction season that was knocked over. He has complied with the paint, the windows, the plastic that I had him put up to prevent the older windows from cracking additionally has fallen off. That has to be reapplied. He has been dressing it up we were going through the legal process of civil infractions, and
Okay.
I have entered into an agreement with him. He also had a phone call to me regarding 100 South Main. I'll ask him if he wants to come back and talk to the Planning Commission regarding the Laundry Palace and what's the status of getting that facade finished. So,
Yeah, it's getting cold enough that you can't paint now, and
right, it was supposed to be like aluminum trim or
yeah, there's trim
galvanized
work and
metal work.
there's-
I found the date we met with him. We met with him October 11th, and I did remember asking him about that, and he said as of that date, he was supposed to be calling the metal supplier on the 11th to find out when he can get it fabricated, and then he was waiting on insurance and a mutual release before he put it all up, but he wanted to get the front facade done ASAP.
But there's no real power of enforcement that we as a body have, is there? I mean, we would like to see the front of his building fixed up, but can we demand that it be done in a certain length of time?
That becomes a legal question, and I don't know if we have the enforcement ability other than going after his tenants,
Yeah.
to punish them through that way. I don't think that's the will of this board to do
No,
that.
it's not.
We could,
Could we require a bond?
require a bond. We could not allow any other development of other properties of his until that one's completed, or received a bond on that one, or so.
We can do that. We can ask for a bond now, even though we didn't when we approved his plans.
You can ask.
I believe his site plan's going to be expiring in March.
Oh, we don't have to wait till March.
You know, that'll unfortunately be here sooner rather than later.
True. Okay.
One last question. Toto's building, have we had any movement on, do they have any idea when they're, it doesn't look like they've started anything, but
I talked to her a while back. She was thinking early January is when they're going to.
okay.
Have they submitted any interior plans to you, Jim?
That would be Nor Technologies, and they have not submitted any plans. I know there's been talk back and forth, and you saw a boat get out of that location, and then the tire exploded on the boat while we were doing the approaches to the parking lot. So that was, I thought that was kind of funny, but sorry.
I'm glad you.
So they have been moving forward. They just not as fast as we had hoped. So
Okay.
Yeah, anything else? We all done? One thing to remember is tomorrow night is the tree lighting across the street at 6:30. If anybody wants to go out there and freeze and come over here and have something warm to drink. Aside from that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we need to, the minutes.
Oh, did
we
you
need
find
to-
anything with the minutes that you?
No, we found, aren't we glad we had them?
Oh, good, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'd say yes again.
Okay, so.
And I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. I got a motion, I got support. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture? Yes. Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Audia? Yes. Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.